From the outside, Jessica Miller's life looked like the kind of picture-perfect story people scrolled past on Instagram and secretly envied. She was 32, a bright-eyed elementary school teacher who wore her blonde hair in soft waves and had a smile that never seemed to fade. Her husband, Daniel Miller, was 35, a charismatic tech executive with an expensive suit for every day of the week and a confidence that seemed to fill any room he walked into. Together, they were the golden couple of their quiet Ohio suburb, a pair of high school sweethearts who had managed to make it through college, careers, and mortgages while still looking like they were madly in love. On Sunday mornings, you could find them holding hands at church, whispering inside jokes to each other as the choir sang. On summer evenings, they'd host backyard barbecues for their neighbors, where Jessica set out her famous peach cobbler and Daniel entertained everyone with his booming laugh. They posted Christmas cards every year with perfectly coordinated outfits, her in a red dress, him in a green tie, their golden retriever Max sitting obediently at their feet. People who barely knew them would comment, "You two are goals." But the thing about picture-perfect images is that they're just that, pictures. Snapshots. Frozen moments that tell you nothing about what's happening when the camera isn't around. Jessica had been feeling it for months now, though she tried to push the unease aside. At first, it was small things, Daniel scrolling through his phone at dinner instead of asking about her day, or the way he started locking his office door during late-night work sessions. She brushed it off, told herself he was just stressed from the demands of his growing company. That was the rational explanation. That was the safe explanation. Still, in the quiet moments, when she was washing dishes alone or folding laundry in their sunlit bedroom, her mind would wander to darker places. She'd wonder why Daniel seemed more distant, why he didn't look at her the way he used to, why his cologne lingered long after he said he'd been at another business meeting. She hated herself for even thinking it. After all, Daniel had never given her a real reason to doubt him. He had been her first love, the boy who walked her home after prom, the man who cried on their wedding day when he promised to cherish her forever. This was the man who had once pulled over on the side of the road just to kiss her because he said the sunset made her hair glow like fire. That kind of man didn't just vanish. Did he? The night that thought first took root, Jessica was lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above her. Daniel was beside her, turned toward the wall, his back rising and falling in even breaths. She listened to him, studied the distance between their bodies, and realized she felt lonelier lying next to her husband than she had ever felt in her entire life. Still, she put on the mask every morning. She showed up at school with a smile for her students, joked with colleagues in the teacher's lounge, and went home to play the part of the supportive wife. On the outside, nothing had changed. She and Daniel were still the Millers, the couple everyone admired, the couple no one questioned. But Jessica knew, deep down, that cracks were forming beneath the glossy surface. She couldn't see the full picture yet, couldn't even admit it out loud, but something was wrong. And whatever it wasn't small. It was the kind of wrong that didn't just disappear. And one night, when Daniel came home late again, smelling faintly of a perfume Jessica didn't own, she realized that the life she thought she had, the perfect, unshakable life, was about to crumble in ways she couldn't even begin to imagine. The first red flag didn't look like much at all. At least, not at first. It was just a Tuesday evening in late spring. Jessica had prepared Daniel's favorite, her grandmother's chicken pot pie, and she sat at the kitchen table, fork in hand, waiting for him to walk through the door like he always did at 6:30 sharp. But 6:30 came and went. By 7:30, the food had gone cold. By 8, Jessica had texted him twice, "Everything okay?" No reply. Finally, just after 9, headlights swept across the driveway. Daniel walked in carrying his leather briefcase, hair tousled, tie loosened, his cologne sharp in the air. He didn't kiss her on the cheek the way he usually did. Instead, he muttered, "Sorry, late meeting," and disappeared into the shower before she could ask anything more. Jessica forced a smile, reheated the pie, and told herself she was overreacting. Men had late meetings all the time, right? That was normal. But something inside her chest tightened. Maybe it was the way he avoided eye contact. Maybe it was how he smelled, not like his usual woodsy cologne, but a sweeter, floral scent clinging to his collar. The next morning, while folding laundry, Jessica noticed a faint smear of lipstick on Daniel's crisp white shirt. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't bright enough to be obvious, just a whisper of red, barely there. Still, she knew what she saw. When she confronted Daniel gently that night, her voice trembling as she held up the shirt, he barely flinched. That? Oh, come on, Jess. I was in a crowded meeting. People bump into each other all the time. Maybe someone brushed against me. Don't be paranoid. Paranoid. The word stung like a slap. Jessica wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, but the way he said it, the way his eyes narrowed as if she was the one at fault, left her shaken. From then on, the little things started to pile up. Daniel's phone was suddenly always face down on the table. He started taking calls outside, pacing the backyard in hushed tones. His once open calendar on the fridge became blank, replaced with vague phrases like work stuff or client dinner. One night, Jessica decided to surprise him. She baked brownies, packed them into a container, and drove to his office. She imagined walking in, making him laugh, maybe even earning a kiss in front of his colleagues. But when she arrived, the office lights were off. Empty. Daniel's car wasn't in the lot. Her chest went cold. She sat there in the dark parking lot for almost 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Then her phone buzzed. It was a text from Daniel, running late at work. Don't wait up. She stared at the empty building and felt her entire world tilt sideways. That night, Jessica lay in bed wide awake, watching the ceiling fan spin. Daniel slipped in quietly past midnight, smelling faintly of alcohol and something else, something sweet, expensive, unmistakably feminine. He kissed her forehead like nothing was wrong. She kept her eyes closed, pretending to sleep, but inside her mind was a storm. The first red flag had turned into a parade of them, waving boldly in her face. Still, she hesitated. Because admitting the truth would mean shattering everything, their marriage, their home, their future. And Jessica wasn't ready. Not yet. But deep down, she knew. Whatever Daniel was hiding, it was only a matter of time before it came crashing into the light. It happened on a rainy Thursday night, one of those evenings where the world outside the Miller's house felt hushed, as if holding its breath. Jessica was curled up on the couch with a blanket, grading a stack of math quizzes while Max, their golden retriever, dozed at her feet. Daniel had stepped into his office earlier, claiming he had to finish a client presentation, but an hour had passed, and she hadn't heard the clicking of his keyboard. The sudden buzz of a phone broke the silence. It wasn't hers. She frowned, glancing at the coffee table, but her phone sat still. The sound was coming from the armchair across the room. Daniel's phone, he must have left it there when he retreated to his office. Jessica froze. He never left his phone unattended anymore. Not once in the past few months. Her pulse quickened as the screen lit up, casting a faint glow across the living room. One word flashed on the screen, baby kiss mark dot. Her throat went dry. The phone buzzed again, and before she could talk herself out of it, Jessica picked it up. Her fingers trembled as she swiped. Hello, she whispered. For a heartbeat, there was only static. Then a low, feminine voice drifted through the line, soft and intimate. I miss you, baby. When can I see you again? Jessica felt as if the floor had been ripped out from under her. The voice was unfamiliar, sultry, dripping with affection that didn't belong to her. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Her mind screamed at her to demand answers, to lash out, but her body betrayed her. She simply stood there, frozen, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the woman's words. The silence stretched too long. Daniel? the voice pressed, a playful lilt to the name. Jessica's hand shook. She fumbled to end the call and dropped the phone onto the couch as though it had burned her. Max lifted his head, sensing her panic, his dark eyes following her every move. In that instant, Jessica's worst suspicions weren't just suspicions anymore. They had a voice. A personality. A rival. She sat there, staring at the phone, every nerve in her body buzzing. Her mind spiraled through questions. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Did Daniel love her? Was he planning to leave? When Daniel finally emerged from his office a few minutes later, Jessica forced herself to act normal. He stretched, yawning, carrying a coffee mug as though he'd been working the whole time. Long night, he muttered, not even glancing at the couch where his phone lay. Jessica studied him in silence, her chest aching with the weight of the secret she now carried. She wanted to scream at him, to shove the phone into his face and demand the truth. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she smiled weakly and asked, "Want me to make you some tea?" Her voice sounded distant, detached, as if someone else had spoken. Daniel nodded absently, kissed the top of her head, and padded upstairs. Moments later, she heard the shower running. Jessica picked up his phone again. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She thought about scrolling through his messages, about finding proof, something undeniable. But fear paralyzed her. Fear of what she'd see. Fear that once she knew, there would be no going back. So she set the phone down, her hands trembling, and told herself she'd wait. She needed more than a voice on the line. She needed undeniable evidence, because when she finally confronted Daniel Miller, she wanted to make sure there would be no escape. That night, Jessica lay in bed beside her husband, staring at the ceiling. The words from the phone call echoed in her ears, "I miss you, baby. When can I see you again?" And for the first time, Jessica realized that the life she thought she was living was already over. After the phone call, Jessica could no longer sit quietly in the shadows of her suspicions. She needed proof, something she could see, something she could hold in her hands. The voice on the other end of Daniel's phone haunted her every waking moment. Each time he kissed her goodbye in the morning, each time he claimed to have another late meeting, those words replayed in her mind, "I miss you, baby. When can I see you again?" By the following week, Jessica had transformed into someone she barely recognized. She wasn't just a wife anymore, she was an investigator, silently collecting clues from the life she shared with her husband. The first step was his phone. She waited for moments when he left it charging on the nightstand or tucked under a stack of papers on the kitchen counter. At first, he had no password, he had never needed one. But now, the screen demanded a 6-digit code. When she asked about it, Daniel laughed it off, "Work security. Company policy. Don't take it personally." Jessica smiled back, but inside, fury simmered. She started watching him closely. Noticing how he stepped outside to take calls, speaking in a low voice that barely carried through the glass patio doors. How he typed messages quickly, then tilted his phone away from her line of sight. How he always carried a spare change of clothes in his car now, something he had never done before. Then she got bolder. She checked the mileage on his car. She noted when he left the house and when he returned. Some nights, the numbers didn't add up. One Friday, Daniel told her he was meeting a client for dinner downtown. Jessica decided she wouldn't just sit and wait. She got into her own car, heart racing, and followed him. She kept several cars between them, praying he wouldn't glance in the rearview mirror. She trailed him for 20 minutes until his black BMW pulled into a dimly lit motel on the outskirts of town, not the sleek downtown restaurant district he'd promised. Jessica's stomach dropped. She parked across the street, her hands gripping the steering wheel, watching as Daniel stepped out of his car. And then came the dagger, a woman slipped out from a waiting vehicle. Jessica couldn't make out her face in the shadows, but she saw the way Daniel touched her arm, the way he leaned in too close, the way they disappeared together through the motel doors. Her whole body went numb. She sat there in the car for what felt like hours, tears burning her eyes, rage boiling in her chest. Max's empty leash sat in the passenger seat, a cruel reminder of the life waiting for her at home, the life Daniel was shattering piece by piece. She almost stormed inside, almost confronted him right then and there. But something stopped her. If she burst in now, he would deny, manipulate, twist the story back on her. He was good at that, making her feel paranoid. No. She needed undeniable proof. Over the next few days, Jessica started documenting everything. Times, dates, places. She downloaded a GPS tracking app and secretly installed it on his phone while he was in the shower, her hands trembling the entire time. She snapped photos of his car parked outside the motel, even filmed a short video through her windshield. Every clue was a stab to her heart, but also fuel for her determination. She wasn't going to be the naive wife who got blindsided. Not anymore. And the strangest thing? The more she investigated, the calmer she became. Each discovery, each lie uncovered, made her stronger. Daniel thought he was playing a dangerous game in the shadows, but Jessica was already planning her countermove. When she lay in bed beside him at night, listening to him snore softly, she no longer felt powerless. She felt like a hunter, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Because Jessica knew something Daniel didn't, secrets don't stay buried forever. And when the time came, she would be the one holding the shovel. Jessica thought she was ready. After nights of restless sleep and days filled with obsessive note-taking, she believed nothing Daniel did could surprise her anymore. She had tracked his car, logged his lies, and even watched him vanish into that seedy motel on the edge of town. She told herself she was numb. She told herself she had already seen the worst. But she was wrong. On a Thursday evening, Daniel claimed he had another late meeting. Jessica kissed him goodbye, her lips brushing against his cheek as if nothing were wrong, and then she waited. 30 minutes later, she slipped out the door, adrenaline pounding through her veins, and followed the tiny dot on her GPS tracker. Tonight, Daniel wasn't heading for the motel. He was going somewhere new. His BMW wound through the city streets before pulling up to an upscale cocktail lounge. Jessica parked a block away and walked, her heels clicking against the pavement, each step a war between dread and determination. Through the lounge's wide windows, she spotted him immediately. Daniel sat at a table tucked in the corner, his suit jacket hanging off the chair, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked relaxed, almost boyish, in a way she hadn't seen in years. And then she appeared. The woman slid into the seat across from him with a smile that made Jessica's stomach twist. She was young, much younger than Jessica, mid-20s, with flawless skin and long auburn hair that shimmered beneath the golden lights. Daniel's eyes lit up in a way Jessica hadn't seen in a long time, and when the woman touched his hand, he didn't pull away. Jessica felt her breath catch. This wasn't just some casual fling. He looked smitten. Her body shook as she fumbled for her phone, raising it discreetly to snap photos through the glass. But then the woman leaned forward, her face turning just enough for Jessica to see clearly. And that's when the bottom dropped out of her world. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some random young woman Daniel had picked up from a bar. It was Rachel. Jessica's best friend. Her confidant. The woman who had been by her side since college, who had held her hand through miscarriages, who had sat on her couch drinking wine and listening to her complain about Daniel's long hours. Rachel, who had hugged her after Max, their golden retriever, died and whispered, "At least you still have Daniel." The betrayal hit harder than any blow could. Jessica staggered back from the window, her knees threatening to give out. Her best friend. The person she trusted most. Inside, Rachel laughed at something Daniel said, tossing her auburn hair over her shoulder, her hand brushing against his. Daniel leaned in closer, his smile wide and genuine. Jessica's pulse pounded in her ears. She wanted to storm in there, to drag Rachel out by her hair and scream at Daniel until the walls shook. But her body froze. Instead, she raised her phone again, hands trembling, and captured photo after photo. Each click of the camera felt like driving another nail into the coffin of the life she thought she had. And then it got worse. Daniel stood, pulling Rachel to her feet. He placed his hand on the small of her back, the exact way he used to guide Jessica through crowded rooms, and led her out the door. Jessica ducked behind a parked car as they emerged from the lounge, laughter spilling from their lips. They didn't notice her, too wrapped up in each other. Daniel opened the door of his BMW, his hand brushing against Rachel's waist, his smile tender. He wasn't just cheating. He was in love. Tears blurred Jessica's vision as she snapped one final photo, Daniel kissing Rachel, slow and lingering, as though the world around them didn't exist. That was the moment Jessica realized her marriage wasn't crumbling. It was already gone. Her best friend had stolen her husband, and the man she had built her life with hadn't even looked back. She lowered her phone, her chest tight, her breath ragged. The streetlight above cast a cold glow on the pavement, and Jessica felt herself unravel. Rage boiled inside her, hot and violent, but beneath it all was something even worse, shame. Because now she knew the truth, and she could never go back to pretending. Jessica slipped into her car and sat in the dark, clutching her phone like a weapon. The evidence was in her hands. The lies were exposed. And yet, she couldn't stop shaking. One thought consumed her as she stared at the glowing screen full of damning photos: this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. Ethan had always prided himself on being calm under pressure, the type of man who could keep his head in the most chaotic of storms. But that composure was nowhere to be found when he finally confronted Rebecca one late night in their dimly lit kitchen. The air was thick with silence, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound between them. "How long?" His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of a sledgehammer. Rebecca's hand trembled as she set her wine glass down. Her once confident gaze faltered, her lips parting as if searching for words that refused to come. Finally, she muttered, "It wasn't supposed to happen, but months." Ethan felt the ground split beneath him. Months. He replayed every business trip, every late-night shower, every sudden change in perfume. It all connected now, and the truth was worse than he imagined. "You lied to me, Rebecca. Every single night you came home and kissed me goodnight, you were lying." His voice cracked, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous, betrayal laced with despair. Rebecca stood, desperate to close the distance. "Ethan, please, it didn't mean I stopped loving you. Stop." He raised a hand, his face pale. "Don't you dare say you love me. Love doesn't look like this." At that moment, Ethan realized the life he thought he built, the perfect house, the stable marriage, the picture-perfect smiles at Sunday barbecues, was nothing more than a fragile illusion. And the illusion had just shattered into pieces sharp enough to cut him to the bone. But instead of breaking down, something inside him hardened. A cold clarity settled over his features. If Rebecca thought she could destroy their marriage and walk away unscathed, she was about to discover that Ethan wasn't the kind of man you betrayed without consequences. The storm inside him was no longer sadness. It was something darker. Something dangerous. Ethan didn't sleep that night. While Rebecca tossed and turned beside him, he stared at the ceiling, his mind racing like a machine set on fire. The betrayal cut deep, but it also lit something inside him, an urge not just to walk away, but to make her regret every choice she made. By morning, he had a plan. At breakfast, Ethan acted calm, almost unnervingly so. He buttered his toast, asked Rebecca if she wanted more coffee, and kissed her cheek before leaving for work. She looked relieved, almost as if she believed his silence meant forgiveness. But Ethan wasn't silent because he forgave her. He was silent because he was plotting. That afternoon, Ethan drove across town to meet with his old college friend, Marcus, who now worked as a private investigator. "I need everything," Ethan said, his tone clipped. "Where she goes, who she's with, what they're doing. Photos, videos, proof. And I don't care how ugly it gets." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Ethan, you sure you want this? Once you see it, there's no going back." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She already took no going back from me." Within days, Marcus delivered a file thick enough to choke Ethan. Photos of Rebecca and Ryan, his best friend, laughing at a bar, holding hands at a hotel lobby, disappearing into the same room late at night. Videos of them kissing in Ryan's car, parked only blocks away from Ethan's office. Ethan watched it all in silence, the rage in his chest spreading like wildfire. Each image wasn't just evidence, it was fuel. And then the idea struck him: instead of exploding in anger, he would flip the script. He would play along, pretend he knew nothing, and then strike when they least expected it. Rebecca thought she was in control. Ryan thought he had stolen Ethan's life. But Ethan was about to turn their secret love affair into a stage play where he was the director, and the final act would leave everyone gasping for air. The dangerous game had begun. For the next week, Ethan became an actor in his own home. He smiled at Rebecca, asked about her day, and even suggested a date night. To her, it must have seemed like he was trying to repair what was broken. To Ethan, it was all part of the setup. Rebecca's guard began to drop. She laughed more, touched his arm at dinner, and even whispered, "I'm glad we're finding our way back." Ethan smiled back, but inside he was cataloging every lie. Behind the scenes, he worked with Marcus to orchestrate the perfect trap. Cameras were hidden in their house, discreetly tucked into the corners of the living room and bedroom. Ethan even synced their security system to his phone, so every time Rebecca brought Ryan over, he would know. And then came the opportunity. Rebecca told Ethan she was working late on a Thursday. Ethan kissed her on the forehead and said, "Don't work too hard." The moment her car left the driveway, Ethan slipped into his truck and parked a block away. Sure enough, Ryan's car rolled in not long after. Ethan watched on his phone as Rebecca opened the door, pulling Ryan inside with a hungry kiss. Instead of storming in, Ethan waited. He let them laugh, drink wine, and stumble into the bedroom. The camera caught everything. Every single thing. Ethan clenched his fists, his knuckles white, but he didn't break. Not yet. He needed them to believe they were safe, that their dirty little secret was still theirs alone. By the time Ethan finally returned home, Rebecca and Ryan were gone. She was already in bed pretending to be asleep when he walked in. He kissed her on the forehead, the same forehead that had just leaned against Ryan's chest, and whispered softly, "Sweet dreams, love." Rebecca had no idea that her dreams were about to turn into her worst nightmare. Because Ethan wasn't just gathering evidence anymore, he was about to use it. Publicly. Brutally. And in a way neither she nor Ryan could ever recover from. Friday evening, the house buzzed with warmth, candles on the table, soft jazz from the speakers. Rebecca thought it was Ethan's way of rekindling romance. She wore her favorite red dress, the one she used to catch Ryan's attention, but tonight she was presenting it as if it were for her husband. Halfway through dinner, Ethan slid a small gift box across the table. Rebecca's eyes lit up with surprise. Inside wasn't jewelry, as she expected, but a sleek new smartwatch. "I figured you deserved something nice," Ethan said smoothly. "This way I'll always know you're safe, whether you're working late, or anywhere." Rebecca smiled, but her hand shook as she fastened it around her wrist. Something about the way he emphasized "anywhere" made her heart skip. The next morning, Ethan made his first move. He uploaded one of Marcus's photos, a grainy shot of Rebecca and Ryan holding hands at a bar, onto a blank social media account. No caption. No tags. Just the image. Within hours, it spread through their small town like wildfire. Rebecca's phone buzzed non-stop. Her friends, her coworkers, even her mother, texted her with confusion and suspicion. She tried to laugh it off with Ethan, pretending she didn't know how such a picture got out. But when she looked at him across the living room, she froze. Ethan was smiling, not warmly, but with a calm, chilling control. Later that night, Ryan called her in a panic. Ethan overheard from the hallway as Ryan's voice cracked through the speaker. "Bex, someone knows. That photo, it's out." "What if Ethan?" Rebecca cut him off. "No. He can't know. He can't." But Ethan did know. And this was just the beginning. He wasn't going to confront them with anger. He was going to let paranoia eat them alive, piece by piece, until they destroyed each other. The first strike had landed. The next would shatter them. Rebecca barely slept that night. She tossed and turned, clutching her phone as if answers might appear on the screen. By morning, dark circles shadowed her eyes. Ethan brewed coffee, humming softly, watching her unravel piece by piece. "You look tired," he said gently, sliding a mug toward her. "Long night?" She forced a smile, but her hands trembled around the cup. "Just, stress at work." Ethan leaned down, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "Don't worry, secrets don't stay hidden forever." Then he walked out the door, leaving Rebecca frozen at the kitchen table, her pulse hammering. That afternoon, Ethan played his second card. Through Marcus, he anonymously sent Ryan a text. "Does Rebecca really love you, or are you just her escape until she gets bored? A friend." Ryan's paranoia ignited instantly. He called Rebecca, his voice sharp with accusation. "Be honest with me, Bex. Am I just a fling to you? Because if this is going to blow up, I need to know where I stand." Rebecca snapped back, her nerves frayed. "Are you kidding me? You think I'd risk everything if this didn't mean something? Don't turn this on me." Ethan watched it all unfold on the phone records Marcus had tapped. Each word was a crack, widening the fracture between them. The next move came during their weekly friend gathering. Ethan casually brought up Ryan in front of everyone. "Haven't seen Ryan much lately." "He's been busy, right?" Ethan said, his smile never wavering. Rebecca choked on her drink. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. The room fell into an awkward silence before someone changed the subject. But the damage was done, everyone noticed. That night, Rebecca confronted Ryan. "We have to be careful. He's suspicious." But Ryan, now paranoid, shot back, "Maybe you slipped. Maybe Ethan's onto you because you're not as careful as you think." Their voices rose, each accusing the other, while Ethan sat in his office downstairs, sipping whiskey, listening to their fight through a hidden mic. The trap wasn't just closing, it was crushing them from the inside. Soon, Ethan knew, they would turn on each other completely. Ethan had waited patiently, feeding their paranoia, watching Rebecca and Ryan unravel. Now, it was time for the curtain to rise on his final act. He chose their wedding anniversary dinner. Rebecca thought it was a sign of reconciliation. Ethan even booked the private dining hall at their favorite restaurant, inviting close friends and family. She arrived in a silver dress, beaming with relief, convinced she had weathered the storm. Ryan showed up too, nervous but trying to play it cool. "Just here to support you both," he muttered when someone asked. But Ethan knew the truth. Ryan couldn't resist watching, couldn't resist testing whether his stolen love would slip up. When dessert was served, Ethan stood and tapped his glass. The room quieted, expectant smiles turning toward him. "I wanted tonight to be special," he began warmly, his gaze sweeping across the crowd, "because anniversaries are about truth, love, and commitment." Rebecca's eyes shimmered with gratitude. Ryan nodded, trying to hide his discomfort. Ethan smiled, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small remote. With one click, the wall behind him lit up. A projector flickered to life. The first image appeared, Rebecca and Ryan at the bar, holding hands. Gasps erupted. Rebecca froze, her face draining of color. Ryan's jaw clenched. Another click. A video played, Rebecca and Ryan kissing passionately in Ryan's car. The room fell into stunned silence. Ethan's voice was calm, almost tender, as he narrated. For months, while I was building a life for us, you were building lies. With him. He turned, his eyes locking on Rebecca. My wife. With my best friend. Rebecca stammered, Ethan, please. But he cut her off. Don't. Everyone here deserves to know the truth. Every time you smiled, every time you swore you loved me, you were already gone. Rebecca's mother burst into tears. Friends whispered in disbelief. Ryan tried to speak, but Ethan's glare silenced him. Ethan placed the remote on the table, his voice low but searing. You two deserve each other. And tonight, you get exactly what you wanted, because you've lost me. Forever. Then, without another word, Ethan walked out, leaving Rebecca and Ryan drowning in a sea of humiliation and betrayal, the walls closing in as every eye in the room burned with judgment. But for Ethan, it wasn't over yet. The public exposure was just the beginning of their downfall. He had one final move left, something that would ensure neither Rebecca nor Ryan would ever rise again. The fallout from the anniversary dinner spread faster than wildfire. By morning, Rebecca's phone was filled with unanswered calls, her inbox flooded with messages that ranged from pity to disgust. Ryan, once the charming best friend everyone trusted, became the subject of hushed conversations and pointed stares. Their reputations were already crumbling. But Ethan wasn't finished. 2 days later, Rebecca received a notice in the mail, divorce papers. Attached was a prenuptial agreement she had signed years ago without much thought, an agreement that left her with nothing if she was caught cheating. And thanks to Ethan's meticulous evidence, there was no escaping it. The house, the savings, the stability, gone. Ryan fared no better. Ethan leaked incriminating photos and videos directly to Ryan's employer. Within hours, Ryan was suspended, his promising career circling the drain. No company wanted a scandal tied to their name. His reputation was radioactive. The final twist came when Ethan uploaded one last video, edited from the hidden cameras, onto a cloud drive. He didn't post it publicly, but he sent the link directly to every family member, close friend, and business associate who mattered in Rebecca and Ryan's lives. Not the strangers online this time, the people whose opinions cut deepest. By the end of the week, Rebecca was living out of a suitcase at her sister's house, her social circle in ruins. Ryan was unemployed, drinking alone in his apartment, a man stripped of everything he thought he had stolen. And Ethan? He sat on his back porch with a glass of bourbon, the evening sun painting the sky in shades of gold. For the first time in months, he breathed freely. When Marcus stopped by to check on him, Ethan only smiled and said, "They thought they broke me. But I don't break. I rebuild." The dangerous game was over, and Ethan had won. Not with fists or fury, but with patience, precision, and the kind of revenge that lingered long after the final curtain fell.